Wes Goldberg, cold open question of the day. This is a Christmas Day preview episode, so in the spirit of the holiday, you get to be NBA Santa Claus. What player, what team, what organization? If you want to give it to the league, you give the league a present. But who are you giving a gift to, and what is said gift? I can go first if you want a second to stew.
Yeah, give me a second to think. I'm interested to see where you're going with this.
So I want to give a gift to the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to give them the invention of a time machine to not have to go back in time and trade Karl Anthony Towns.
Mm-hmm.
This team just does not feel like and we're going to talk about them in the preview today, but this just does not feel like the team that we came to really love and had such a great run last year. It just feels different. They don't feel as good. They don't feel as dangerous. Even someone like DiVincenzo, who you think would come in and just fit perfectly because of what he is, it hasn't felt the same for him for whatever reason. He's not been nearly as good as I think as he was with the Knicks last year. There's a lot of positivity about Ant. I would still believe in him as a anchor of your franchise, but they really, with that trade, and I understand it was a financial move, really structured and framed as a basketball move. It was more financial than basketball. But if I could just go back and say, you guys don't have to actually do this. You can. This is what's going to happen. Deal with the finances a year from now. Just give yourself a chance on the continuity. I would give them a chance to just go back and redo it. That's not like as practical. The more practical one I would say I would give is like Kings. You don't have to trade De'Aaron Fox right now. Just don't do it in season. If you're gonna have to do it next summer, but don't do it now. You're in a better spot than I think your record suggests.
All good gifts. I think what I would do is maybe just give the gift of no aprons to NBA fans in general. The new CBA sucks.
Yeah, man.
Sucks. For the reasons that you already described with the Minnesota Timberwolves, I don't understand Adam Silver's obsession with parity. I really don't get it. One of my favorite things about the NBA is I never felt like a fluky team won the championship. Like in Major League Baseball, you'd get a hot pitcher and you would just win the World Series. And that's kind of cool. And I get it. And in March Madness, like the Cinderella story and everything is interesting. But this obsession of Adam Silver to make the NBA some weird cross between European League soccer and the NFL. Like I always thought the best thing the NBA had going was when dominance arrives at the NBA's doorstep, it tends to just be the king of the castle. And now we're in a situation where if you look at the best players in the league, Chris, they're not on the best teams in the league. Nikola Jokic is the best player in the league. The Nuggets might be the 5th seed in the Western Conference when it's all said and done. Giannis Antetokounmpo coming for him as the best player in the league. The Bucks, they got out to a stumbling start a little bit. It's really hard to build a team even with role players around Giannis and Dame and Chris Middleton. But they signed Chris Middleton to a contract extension a couple of years ago. He breaks both of his ankles, has to go under surgery for both of his ankles, whatever it was. And then now they can't. Now Middleton is a shell of himself and they can't rebuild around Giannis. Like that's who is this for? Who is this for? The Milwaukee Bucks won a championship before all this parity. It's not for the small markets. Small markets can win. The Spurs won championships. Small markets can win, or they were able to win. I don't understand who parity is for. Nobody likes this, and the NBA is wondering why ratings are down. It's because none of these teams are compelling because all your best players are on slightly above average teams. And so, yeah, I would give the gift of no more aprons, a brand new CBA, the whole thing to NBA fans, to NBA front offices, to the best players in the league. It's really the only thing anybody wants.
You ask who it's for. It feels like it is for the league from a marketing standpoint. Like that, it doesn't feel like it's for that. It feels like it is a business idea that they have that they want to stick to because it doesn't really feel like how teams really want to build. I mean, even in European soccer, I would say, like if that's the thing Adam Silver's obsessed with, there are financial limitations and structures and things, but there are have and have nots. There are super teams and there are teams that are chasing the super teams. That is like there is a real structure that is the structure.
Mm-hmm.
The NFL, it's like the teams that are, it's, there's obviously a lot more like cap chaos there that teams have to navigate, but that is a league where the teams are all chasing the best teams. The NBA is almost like trying to just like, not like, it's like stopping sports Darwinism in sort of what they want to do.
They're artificially depressing greatness, and that's annoying. Like, you think about the history of the NBA, it's defined by its great teams. It's defined by Bill Russell's Celtics and Magic and Bird. It's defined by the 1990s Chicago Bulls with Michael Jordan. It's defined by the big three Miami Heat and the Kobe and Shaq Lakers and the Tim Duncan Spurs and the Steph Curry with Kevin Durant Warriors. Like, that's what the story of the league is written by. And it's not written by a 49-win team that falls ass backwards into the NBA Finals. That's not what the story of the league ever was. And I think it's against the whole thing that the NBA, ought to stand for and has stood for. To answer my own question, it's for the owners. It's for the owners so that they don't feel pressured to go over some second cap apron when Joe Lacob and Matt Ishbia are doing it, and James Dolan is cheap, or the Timberwolves owner is cheap, or the Nuggets owner is cheap, and they look like assholes because they won't spend the same that these, billionaires are spending. So it's for the owners to create what essentially has become a hard cap. It's the closest thing that the NBA has to a hard cap, and probably will ever have get past the players union and a hard cap. That's who it's for. So essentially, Chris, it's for 30 people in the world. That's who this is for. It's 30. It's for 30 billionaires, and it's for nobody else. It's not for the fans. It's not for the players. Players don't like this. Karl-Anthony Towns did not want to get traded. It's not for them. It's not for the coaches. It's not for the general managers who have to figure out how to jump through all these hoops. It's not for anybody but those 30 people.
It's for ambassador to Italy, Tillman Fertitta. You aware of this?
And he's got enough on his plate.
Yeah. When I saw Tillman Fertitta was going to be an ambassador, my brain
might be a separate cold open question.
It's never something we're talking about on the show until he's like, guys, we're going to Milan. And we're going to be like, what do you mean? You're skipping Mexico City. It's like our expansion teams are Seattle and Rome. Like, if we get there, then
playing the Coliseum, it'd be dope.
Okay, honestly though, they an NBA game in the Coliseum. Not really possible.
The Sharks, the whole thing.
The Sharks.
Yeah, I saw Gladiator too.
Shout out to Ridley Scott being like, fuck history. I don't believe in. There definitely were sharks, and every historian's like, absolutely, they did not have the ability to take sharks from the ocean and bring them inland and keep them alive and then flood them in the Coliseum.
I don't know, Chris. It's all in the movie.
It must have been true. All right, on today's show, Christmas Day slate is here. We're gonna preview it. Let's dive in on the Just Basketball Show. What is up, everyone? Chris Manning and Wes Goldberg here on the Just Basketball Show, your twice-weekly show covering all things hoops. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, on YouTube. Subscribe, hit that notification bell as well. And today's episode is brought to you by BetMGM.
If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use the bonus code JustBasketball, and you'll get up to $1,500 in a first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM Sportsbook app on iOS or Android. Sign up using the code JustBasketball. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. You'll receive up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if that bet loses. Just make sure that you use the bonus code JustBasketball when you sign up. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21 or older to wager. Terms and conditions apply.
Also got to tell you about our friends at Homage. Homage is the ultra-comfortable specialty apparel company with NBA and WNBA licenses. They use vintage-inspired designs to pay homage to the greatest stories, traditions, and figures across sports, music, and popular culture. Use our link below. Make your purchase. Support the Just Basketball Show. After Christmas, get a little money from someone. You want to get yourself something nice that you didn't get quite filled. Go to Homage. Use our link. Support the show. Wes, let's go to game number one. Knicks-Spurs. We're going to go these in time order. So where they start on
Mhm.
the East Coast, earliest of the day, all the way to West Coast. I think in the way we are going to preview these is what are we most excited about in these games, right? Like, what is something, if you're jumping into the NBA season at this point, if you're maybe haven't watched all of these teams with regularity, what is something you can be really excited about in watching this game? And for me in this one, this is the spectacle game. This is the Victor Wembanyama at MSG game. That's what this is
Mhm.
about to me. Seeing him in his first Christmas Day game, seeing him playing at MSG on first Christmas Day game. You considering where we think his ceiling is and where he's going, Wes. This is not going to be the last time, but the first time is going to be special. You hope, I think, for the league, if you're a fan watching this game, that he has like an absolutely monster day and kind of like makes his presence felt in this. But to me, it's about Wembanyama. It's about seeing the baseline of what he's going to be as a superstar on these big stages, laid that foundation, that potential showcase here with pick and rolls with Chris Paul, with Stephon Castle. Just with the Spurs team isn't great. They're not here because they're a great team. They're here because of Wemby, and seeing him on the stage to me is what this is all about. I love that they're giving him the platform to
Mhm.
start off our day here and having Wembanyama at MSG against a Knicks team, and you know how raucous that MSG crowd is going to be.
Yeah, Christmas Day is for the teams that made the NBA Finals the last year and the league's stars. And one of the league's greatest stars, and has been for 50, 60 years, is Madison Square Garden. It's
Mm-hmm.
just, it's one of the league's stars, that and Staples Center or whatever, whatever the Lakers call their arena at the time. And the celebrities will be out on Christmas Day. I'm here for it. I enjoy it, and I'm with you with Victor Wembanyama at Madison Square Garden. I remember talking with somebody close to Victor Wembanyama who works with him during his training in the off seasons before Wembanyama got drafted, and I was hearing, everybody's hearing all the hype about Wembanyama and all this stuff, and I remember reaching out to this guy and saying, "Is this for real? Like, is he just 7'4"? Like, is this for real?" And the guy goes, "The hype is legit and might not even be like enough." He's like, yes, the size, the skill, the unicorn stuff is all there. But what strikes me about working with Victor Wembanyama is his competitive side. His ability to want to get better and to want to perform and to want to be great. Victor Wembanyama is going into this game at Madison Square Garden and looking at this as his opportunity to come out to the world, or one of several that he's already had. And I think he's going to embrace it. We've seen this guy put up crazy stat lines, 34 points with 10 blocks, 5 steals, 5 blocks in a game with 20-something points and 20 rebounds, just crazy stuff. I don't know what sort of Victor Wembanyama bingo we're going to play on Christmas, but he's going to come in and light up Madison Square Garden in some way, shape, or form. And he's going to do it in front of MSG, in front of the celebrities that are sitting courtside, and in our leadoff game of this Christmas Day slate. So I'm with you that I'm excited for that. What I'm interested in, Chris, is the matchup between Victor Wembanyama and Karl-Anthony Towns, because I think you're absolutely right when you say this is an entry point for a lot of casual NBA fans, right? There's only 2 more weeks left in the NFL season. A lot of teams are probably are out of it, eliminated from the playoffs. You start shifting gears. Okay, Christmas Day, it's cold out. Start staying indoors a little bit more. It's time to start shifting gears over to the basketball season. Christmas Day, let's watch. I know the NFL has some Christmas Day games here, but we're not going to talk about that. So you look at, okay, if this is sort of an entry point for the casual NBA fan, they are going to learn a lot about what the NBA has been in 2024 and is going to be in 2025. Because they're going to see 2 7-footers probably combining to take 23-point attempts in this game between Karl-Anthony Towns and Victor Wembanyama. Now, Towns only averages like 4 or 5. Wembanyama is averaging like 11. So 20 was a little bit of an exaggeration. But if you're getting 15 to 23-point attempts from 2 guys who combined measure 14 and a half feet tall, that's a pretty wild thing. If you're an NBA, if you're a casual fan who has not seen the NBA and all the 3-point shooting and all that stuff that people have been complaining about or liking or enjoying or whatever it is, you're going to be like, oh, this is what people are talking about. These giant humans are barely even going to the rim. They're pulling up from 3-point range. Now I get it. So the response to this is going to be really interesting, Chris, because it could sort of pour some gasoline on this fire that's already been raging in terms of is there the discourse around 3-point shooting in the NBA ratings and all that kind of stuff.
Well, and there's such an interesting dichotomy with the NBA and the NFL and like the way we're gonna watch sports on Christmas Day for this one specific way. Normally, the NBA is like the thing on cable, and I know there's like some games in ESPN, but it's like broadly speaking, it is on linear television, right? The NFL is the one on like the streaming platform, and I know it's Netflix, so it's like the one everyone has. But like, does your grandma have Netflix like at her house?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like one of these things like where you are that could be depending what you watch, and like how that gets kind of plays out is like an interesting like sports media stuff. I think it's not really of interest, but you're right. Like the 3-point shooting, and also just in a nerdy sense, like Wemby's ability to disrupt what Towns does. Wemby's coming off a game against Portland, so not like a great team, where he tied his career high with 10 blocks. I want to say that again. Tied a career high with 10 blocks. It was like this is the first time he's done it. This is a multiple time he's done this. Blew out Portland. He was close to a triple-double. Utterly dominant game. And I know I believe they're playing on the 23rd, if I'm not mistaken. As before we're recording this, I think they're playing Philly, if I'm not mistaken. But like he is coming off of like nearly like one of his like just an utterly dominant defensive performance. If you told me that like a big crux of this game is the Knicks having to navigate how to attack Wemby or like adjust their offense to get the threes with Towns that they want, I can't wait to watch that. And like how Jalen Brunson in particular is like placing passes to try to navigate this. Like it's a real thing. And it's going to be on the biggest stage possible. It's going to be awesome to watch that little battle.
It's sort of these two Spider-Man memes pointing at each other, right? Because you've got Brunson and Towns on one side in their pick and pop game, and then Chris Paul and Victor Wembanyama on the other side in their pick and pop game. And two genius point guards in Brunson and CP3 kind of trying to figure out, okay. And obviously Brunson's job is a little bit harder because of just how dominant Victor Wembanyama is defensively. But then the Knicks have all these wing defenders and just like the better, I think, or, you know, a comparable, at least overall defense, because they've got all these sort of long arms and limbs out there on the perimeter kind of trying to get in Chris Paul's way. So I think, I think the point guard versus defense matchup on both ends will be interesting from sort of an X's and O's standpoint. The Spurs have been trending up. The Knicks have been trending up. The Knicks look like a downright contender over these last couple of weeks, Chris. So this will also be an opportunity for them to say, hey, guys, we're here. We're beating your chosen superstar, Victor Wembanyama. He might be amazing, but we're the better team. Like, there's going to be a chance for the Knicks to make to send a message here too.
Excited for Chris Paul to get like another Christmas Day. We don't know when the end's coming for him, but I do love that Chris Paul is getting one more day in the spotlight. All right, let's go to Wolves-Mavs. Wes, I'll go first again here, just because I think that to me, like the meta part of this is what interests me. This was a playoff matchup.
Western Conference Finals.
It's not gonna look the same because of the town tree we talked about at the top. It's gonna look different. It's gonna feel different. These teams are in different places. They're still both, dangerous in their own ways, and you have superstars, and that in itself, it's like the possibility of an Ant Luka or like an Ant Kyrie duel is a real thing. Dallas 7th in net rating. Minnesota is at 10th. Like, these are still two top 10 teams, at least if you look at it from a net rating perspective. Wolves defense still, it hasn't been good. The offense is a real slog. Dallas, much more balanced with a really good offense. I think what this game feels like to me is going to be the story. Like the number one thing is if we're going to get a duel that is like a traditional scores delight duel, it's going to be Ant versus Luka in this game. Like that's where the traditional two guys drop 50 in a game kind of scoring night you love to see as an NBA fan. That's the thing you're going to get here if you're going to get it from any of these games. But what this game tells us about how these two teams that made the Western Conference Finals and one team made the finals, and then how they evolved and adjusted with the Clay trade, and then the Wolves obviously trading Cat. Like what this game tells about how that adjustment is going, and what that means for them in the West, to me is the big thing I'm watching for here at this point in the season.
Yeah, it's a great point, right? Because if you look at what the Western Conference Finals were and why that was so interesting, is you had this juggernaut of a defense in Minnesota going up against maybe the best offensive player in the game last year. It was him or Jokic and Luka Doncic, right? and you had this amazing offensive force versus this, unmovable item that was the Minnesota's defensive unit, and Luka broke through and sent Dallas to the NBA Finals. And that in and of itself was compelling. And then you add on the Anthony Edwards part of it, where he was just so dominant during portions of that series and obviously the series before that, where you had this extra sort of like, it's weird to say that Anthony Edwards was almost a B storyline to that series, but he was, considering that his team lost. And now it kind of feels like we're only left with that B storyline, and the A storyline is gone because Minnesota's defense is not the dominant unit it was. If Luka torches Minnesota's defense, it won't be nearly as impressive as it was during the Western Conference Finals, right? It'd be like, yeah, Luka Doncic scored 30, not very surprised. So to me, when I look at with this is I can't really get jazzed up for any of the X's and O's parts of this. Like, it's not really even an interesting matchup, honestly. No. It's the star power. That's what's selling the tickets here. That's what's drawing my eyeballs. If I can get a great Anthony Edwards versus Luka Doncic game, then I'll be really happy. If this thing goes into the fourth quarter close and I got those guys trading baskets, that could be the thing we walk away from Christmas Day remembering. Like, there's potential for that here. Because you could argue this is the best matchup between just two great players going right now of this whole slate, right? If you just pick one star on one team, one star on the other team, these are the two best stars playing each other. You could argue between Ant and Luka. We'll get to some of the other ones obviously here in a second. But yeah, I think there's the potential for just like that very like kind of lizard brain mano a mano kind of thing that we can walk away from if we get a cool kind of fourth quarter final 5-minute run from those two guys. So we're not going to know, I don't think, if this game is going to be any good until like the fourth quarter and those guys are going at it or not. And that's fine. You know what? It's Christmas. This is not the playoffs. It's not about the matchups. It's not about it's not about the X's and O's. It's about the marquee. That's what Christmas Day is for. And this game has two of the marquee guys in the league. Luka Doncic, Anthony Edwards, on the same court, same game, middle of the day on Christmas. That's what it's all about.
West, it's been a while since we've done a list. I got a list for you. Can I get a sound?
You can get what kind of sound do you want?
I don't know. What's yeah, we're back. I got a list. Top 5 young NBA players playing on Christmas Day.
All right.
Brought this, and there's some obvious ones here. Number 1, Wemby.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Number 2 is Luka.
Mm-hmm.
Is
he a young player anymore?
How old?
Feels like he's been in our life for so long.
I know, but he's not like he's 25. If 25 isn't young, then I don't know what we're doing here. I'm just saying, like, these are like the future stars of the league kind of thing. I'm checking one person's age very quickly before I don't do this. Devin Booker's 20. He's ineligible. 28 washed. I can say that as a 31-year-old who can describe people as washed. Number 4, I'm going to go Tyrese Maxey.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think that's still a dude. Number 5's a little weird because, like, the Celtics guys, Jason Tatum I know is 19 years old, but he's actually 26. Like, 25 is my arbitrary cutoff here. 5's a little harder, and I think that's an interesting subplot of this whole Christmas Day thing. It's sort of why I wanted to do this list, in that you have like the old guys matchup and Lakers Warriors. You have KD and Durant, who are both different versional. Booker's firmly in his prime.
Yeah, I think 5 on your list is up for grabs, right? You could talk, hey, does Stephon Castle have a great day for San Antonio?
Yeah.
Does he kind of burst onto the scene? Is there a McDaniels thing there for Minnesota where he can kind of jump up? Is there a Derek Lively big game brewing in Dallas? Jonathan Kuminga with Golden State. Like, any of these guys can kind of step up.
Kuminga's my 5 for that reason, because he feels like the one where it's like, if he flashed it in certain ways, and also could be the guy that is like traded for a star in a month, and we think he then kind of gets the young star rub. But my point of this list is, number 1, there's 4 I think ones I really love. Maxey's in a weird spot right now, but I think like he ultimately has the talent. It's kind of interesting how like Wemby's in a great spot, but like there's not like, aside from him, there was one more like young guy in the Ascendants that we could really like book here to get a spotlight. That feels like it's sort of missing from the DNA of this to me, just a little bit.
That's fair.
Is that unfair? I don't know, because it feels like when I'm a kid, I could just be misremembering this, but it feels like they would plant younger guys.
Well,
Even
I
if their
do think
teams
that
weren't
they
as good for
did that.
matchups.
I think they did that this year by putting the Spurs on Christmas Day when they have accomplished nothing. That's just marketing Victor Wembanyama. They're kind of doing the same thing with Anthony Edwards in Minnesota. Like they made the Western Conference Finals last year, but they don't like
Not
making
a
the
marquee
conference finals
market.
doesn't guarantee you a spot
Yeah.
in Christmas Day, especially if you're a small market, to your point. So they are pushing a couple of their young guys here in Victor Wembanyama and Anthony Edwards. I think they're doing that for sure.
Yeah. All right. So that's my list. Anything else on Wolves-Mavs before we move on?
Nope.
All right. I got to tell everyone about eBay real quick before we get to 76ers Celtics. I think the game I'm least excited for is 76ers Celtics.
What a tease.
But
stay with us.
It's look, I don't mean to do that. It's just like it's tough.
No, I've got a great take. I've got a great
Okay.
76ers take. So
Okay.
hit them with the ad read, and then they're going to get a great 76ers take.
There's the good tease. Me like no selling a game. Here we go. eBay has been a fantastic partner for the whole Just Sports Podcast Network this year, partnering with Just Baseball on 3 incredible events from spring training to the All-Star Game to Wildcard Weekend. We want to shout out their new Game Time Gets collection, along with the career benchmarks, league-wide records, and single-game achievements that will trigger them to drop at ebay.com/Game Time Gets. With bidding for each card starting at 24 cents as an homage to the game's 24-second shot clock, you can get in on the action at a number that isn't gonna you be like, oh, I can't get on that, but you can when they start at just 24 cents. Some of the ones this year that have been really cool: Ja Morant, 2,000 assists. You had Steph Curry hitting 24,000 career points. LeBron James hitting 1,500 career games played. I hope they gave him a 1 billion minutes card from his milestone the other night. You got a bunch of other ones. Caitlin Clark is in there. Nafessa Collier. Paolo was on there. All the names you know and love. ebay.com/Game Time Gets. All right, 76ers Celtics West. Let's dive in. What's your take?
I'm excited for whatever excuse Joel Embiid's going to have for not playing in this game.
Okay, you know what? I no sold it, and you actually like set me up that you had like, and you no sold you. Joel Embiid not playing on Christmas Day, low key. Like if they were like,
It's a tradition.
I know, but if they were like, if that happened, it probably, and they're playing Monday, which is like absurd that like the NBA schedule makers put Philly on a back-to-back the night before they were going to put them on Christmas Day. That's just like an L for the schedule makers. $100,000 Adam Silver puts the call out. Like, we'll give everyone on a team a extra $100,000 to just come and play today. We'll swap out a game for you. I mean, someone's got to say yes, for the $100,000. Say, sorry, honey, I'm gonna go make some bread.
Because
like what?
This is
like,
this is the least interesting game because you've got a lot of factors here. Embiid, I joke, but he didn't play last year when the 76ers played the Heat. He was a late scratch in that game. I don't know that anybody's excited to watch Podcast P shoot 30% overall. And it's, Tyrese Maxey, you already said, he's kind of in a weird spot here. He's interesting. He's got a lot of fans among Sixers fans. I don't know that anybody outside of Philadelphia is tuning in to watch Tyrese Maxey. I don't think he's that kind of ticket seller. And then for the Celtics, this is going to come off as anti-Boston, as it usually does with me. They're the most boring, dominant team we've ever had since basically the Spurs were boring and dominant. It's a math problem. It's the three-point shooting. They're not compelling. Jason Tatum is not a compelling superstar. There's not he's a great player. I mean, nothing about this on the court. He seems like a nice guy. He is not an interesting person. Or if he is, he doesn't let anybody know. Jaylen Brown thinks he's really interesting. He's not. The most interesting Celtic, I think, is probably Kristaps Porzingis. And, his status is always sort of TBD. It's just not an interesting game. It's going to be the Celtics winning by 30 because they made 28 three-pointers or whatever it's going to be, and Philadelphia floundering the way they have all season. That's what this game is going to be. And then the post-game thing between this game and the next game is going to be, is there any helping the 76ers? Can they right the ship before the playoffs? Is the process a failed experiment? It's going to be all the same talking points that we always talk about with the 76ers. They're all recycled. We've all heard them before. If it's a good time that this game is in the middle of the day at 5 o'clock, right around when some people are eating dinner, just go to your kitchen table. Let this game play in the background. You don't need to be locked in on this one.
First take the next day. Are the Celtics what's wrong with the NBA? That's coming up next.
And they might be.
They might be. It's true. Might be.
Yep.
This is the, I'll just say lovingly, respectfully, this is the nap zone. If you need a Christmas Day nap, if you've been overstimulated by family and gifts and food and maybe like a early afternoon like cocktail, this is the point where if you want to go squeeze a nap in or something, I think this is the way to go.
Yeah, unless you're like really into Peyton Pritchard, there's no reason to watch this game.
Peyton Pritchard, who is last time I looked like I think like a minus 1100 at BetMGM to win Sixth Man of the Year.
And if you listen to Boston Media Mafia, he might get on MVP ballots by the end of the season. They love pushing their guys for awards they don't deserve. Marcus Smart.
Shout out. Marcus Smart's someone I think a new home guy. I will when we get to trade deadline and we're getting closer and closer, teasing you out. Marcus Smart is a guy that I would like to see in a new environment just for the sake of I think it could do him some good. But we'll get there. Am I part of the Boston Media Mafia? That's coming up in January. All right, Lakers Warriors. Wes, another kind of meta one for me here because these are two teams that, because of who their defining players are, LeBron and Steph, they are chasing one thing. That is, it is about titles. But both these teams are so flawed that like them getting to be real contenders just does not seem possible.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that we're getting them, LeBron and Steph, even if it's not like it really is a friendship. It's not really a rivalry as much anymore. I still like that we're getting these historically important guys in a Christmas Day game. Maybe for the last time, could happen next year. But like, there's only so many more of these LeBron versus Steph games we're ever going to get. I like that we're getting it. I think it's interesting that they put two teams who I think are both too flawed to really be title contenders at the upper level that need to probably make a move. And I think our teams we think about is probably going to make moves by the deadline. It's interesting that like we're getting these two matched up together.
I mean, I'm not sure what you mean by interesting because this is going to be the highest rated game of the day. It's LeBron versus Steph. It's the no-brainer.
Yeah, this is the one that like if your family's casually into basketball or you're listening to us, you're just getting, you're like, oh, I'm gonna throw on LeBron and Steph. Like this is the one.
Yeah. In terms of your meta point, we are getting to we're getting to the stage, or we're at the stage now, it seems, with LeBron and Steph, where it's less about what they can achieve, and it's more about just living in these moments. Whether it's watching LeBron become like the all-time minutes leader in the regular season, or watching him all-time game played, or even a couple years ago when Steph became the all-time leader in three-point shooting, and even the Olympics, as much of as an achievement as that is, it's not really their team's achievement. And it felt like it was more of a moment watching LeBron and Steph represent, the USA in the Olympics. And this season, you're exactly right. They're not playing for a championship. I do think that's worth playing to be competitive. I would love to see LeBron and Steph in the playoffs. There's no NBA fan that does not want to see LeBron and Steph in a playoff series, right? Nobody wants to see these teams miss the postseason. But yeah, in terms of being able to achieve and add something to their resume, they're not really doing that at this stage of their careers. And that's okay. Steph's 37, LeBron's 39. Like, that's totally fine that they're not at the achieving stage of their careers anymore. They're just checking boxes, and we're living in moments with them. So, yeah, I'm excited more for this game than I am Philadelphia versus Boston.
Oh, it's no question. It's no question.
It's LeBron and Steph. And by the way, both of these defenses stink now. Mm-hmm. The Lakers defense is starting to trend up a little bit here. There's a potential for this to end up being like LeBron versus Steph, but also a game where they combine to score 240 points. And that's kind of fun on Christmas. So, I think there's the LeBron versus Steph aspect, which is always great. If this could be close in the fourth quarter, we're just going to have like a back and forth at some point. And it's worth staying up. Like, that's the meat inside of the nut that you watch for. But there could be a role player that steps up. We already mentioned Jonathan Kuminga. Maybe this is a random like great D'Angelo Russell night, or a Rui Hachimura like 28-point game or something. There'll be one role player who kind of steps up, maybe swings this game. It could be interesting because, yes, these teams are not at the upper echelon of their conference, but they are in the same spot in their conference. Like, this will be a competitive game because qualitatively they're kind of the same team. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to it.
This is going to be a competitive game between two of the all-time greats. If I was a betting man, I think that's what this is going to happen. That's worth watching.
Mm-hmm.
This is a game that is worth your attention. I think even West, just purely from like reminding yourself that these guys still got it kind of situation. It's like that in itself. It's like these are both guys that in different eras like might have been aged out at a certain, like Bron might have retired like 4 years ago in like a different era of the league, but he's still probably going to play another year. Steph is older and plays a style that I think it's there's something really interesting that I would love to hear him talk about at some point about how he kept up this style of play deep into his later 30s. Draymond is liable to do something absolutely insane anytime he's on the basketball court. There's a lot of AD could be the best player on the floor in this game.
Well,
too.
that's
like,
the other thing about this is that there's an opportunity here for Anthony Davis to kind of take the baton and just start running with it. Because he's 31 years old. I think I have that right for Anthony Davis. He's like right. We keep talking about the Warriors and the Lakers as being these old teams, and Anthony Davis is right in the middle of his prime, right? Like he's like this first 10 games of the season, he might have never, he may have never played better basketball than he did to open up this season. So, there's a chance for LeBron and Steph to be the marquee guys at the top of the thing here, but for Anthony Davis to kind of burst into the scene and just steal the movie, so to speak, as a supporting actor. But yeah, Anthony Davis might be the best player in this game. So what he does offensively, there's a big opportunity here because the Warriors are so small. Anthony Davis could dominate, but also what he does defensively. Like if the Warriors put him in that yo-yo where he's got to go from the rim and then up high to show on Steph's pick and rolls with Draymond or Kevon Looney or Trace Jackson Davis or whatever, he could look dominant defensively too. So in terms of his two-way play, he might be the best player.
That one's worth watching. Last one of the night is Nuggets Suns.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you at on this one, Wes?
Is Jokic going to go for 40 in this game? Because Phoenix has zero resistance for Nikola Jokic. Like, Nurkic is not a factor for them. The rookie, his name's escaping me right now, is a rookie at the end of the day. This has an opportunity to be a really big Nikola Jokic game. I'm excited for this one. I think it'll be a high-scoring game, potentially, especially if Phoenix is at full force with Durant and Booker and Beal. I think there's a lot of guys who could test Denver's kind of leaky perimeter defense there. And if you're coming off screens, you're making Jokic step up in the screen and roll. I know that that's not been as much of an issue in the past for Jokic, but no matter who you are, it's an issue when it's Kevin Durant and Devin Booker and Bradley Beal on the other side of that screen and roll. And so, like, it's going to test Denver's defense. I think Denver's offense is going to test Phoenix's defense because of what they're able to do in the paint and how vulnerable the Suns are at the rim. Like, this is kind of a nightmare matchup for both of these defenses. So what's going to happen? Like, are we going to get like seriously, Chris, if you had to guess, like what would the over, can I set the BetMGM over under high enough? Like if I set it at,
I'm taking the over
240 and a half points, would you go over?
Yeah, I'll go over.
Total.
I only have two bets I really like. I've been looking at, and I was gonna just go like Wemby, like whatever the line is. I don't think it's obviously not, but whatever like the points, like whatever his blocks prop is, I'm taking the over on that just as like a fun prop, and like he's just liable to just smash it. We'll see what the value is, and then the over on Nuggets Suns to me is just like the lock of the lock.
Do you have it in front of you?
I don't think it's. I doubt it's out yet, considering we're 2 days out.
Point. Yeah.
You can get you've been able to get like game lines at certain books for a couple days, if not like a couple weeks on some of those games. You've not been able to get some of the more intricate.
All right, stop me. Let's do the thought exercise. Stop me when you wouldn't go over. All right, 240 and a half over.
I'm taking the over.
248.
I would take the over.
255.
That's probably my ceiling.
All right, so if I put the over under at 260, you would go under.
Yeah, I mean, like the team, the season leader in points per game is Memphis at 123.
Mm-hmm.
So like betting two teams to beat that by 7 points feels
that's
tough.
You're probably right, but if this game ends up being 135 to 140, nobody's going to be surprised either.
No, I mean this is the Hooper's delight game as well. Is the other part of this that's really fun. It's like you have in Jokic, Durant, and Booker, and specifically Jokic and Durant, you have two of the most aesthetically like pleasing to me personally guys in the way they play basketball that you're possibly going to get.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's also a matchup where they're like the avenue for them to do what they like to do is just staring them in the face. Like you mentioned the Jokic part of it, but like Aaron Gordon can do like a solid enough job on Durant, but like it's no one really stops Durant.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who, frankly, on Denver is up to defending Booker if he gets hot.
They'll have Christian Brown chase him around. Russell Westbrook will get some minutes doing it, but yeah, that's not an awesome.
If you told me this was like a huge Devin Booker like pull up shooting game, I'd be like, yeah, that absolutely tracks. That's a thing that's going to happen here. Like this is a game where like you're going to be like just wowed. I think by the it's like kind of lame to say it and frame it this way in some ways, but it's like this is like the guys who are just like pure. Like if you're just like I love like the technical like the way guys set things up, and you have a somewhat of an appreciation for like this is probably the game for you. Is how these guys are going to get
to watch Kevin Durant navigate his way into the mid range and just kind of set up shop in his office and go to work is going to be interesting. Just watch Jokic play basketball is always interesting, and to do it with so little resistance that he's going to get against Phoenix, it might be a situation where Jokic is like, do I really have to score? Do I just score again? Like you might see some of the interesting Nikola Jokic tidbit here though. On the Serbian calendar, it is not Christmas on December 25th. They don't celebrate Christmas until January. So this is just another run-of-the-mill Wednesday for Nikola Jokic. And I bring that up only because a lot of these players could sometimes be distracted by the pomp and circumstance of playing on Christmas Day. They obviously have family things that they're also, obligations that are before or after these games that they might be thinking about if they're playing at home or even on the road. Like a lot of time they're worried about getting tickets to family members for these games. There's a lot of distractions around these games. And so for somebody like Nikola Jokic, he has zero distractions. This is just, he's like, I don't really know what everybody's celebrating. It's a Wednesday. What are we talking about? Because his Christmas isn't until next month. And so I think you see Jokic kind of being more locked in on Christmas when he has played on Christmas than some of his opponents. And I always just find that kind of fascinating.
Yes. Wes, quick little Nuggets update. Mark Stein had reported a couple days ago, I think Sunday, that the Bulls are not interested in taking back Zeke Naji. And there's also some debate within the Nuggets about splitting Michael Porter Jr.'s salary up into two players instead of making a LaVine trade. Mm-hmm. What do you make of these latest developments in the possibility of Zach LaVine to Denver?
Yeah, the Zeke Naji thing is kind of interesting to me because I know that it's not a great contract, but it's not a terrible contract. It's less than $8 million. It's $8 million. It's long. He's got 3 more years after this one. But if you really wanted Michael Porter Jr., then you would just take on Zeke Naji. Or if you really wanted to get off of Zach LaVine, you would just take Zeke. Beggars can't be choosers. You're dealing with Zach LaVine at $40+ million or Naji at $8 million. Like, just if you really were into this trade, you would just do it. So this says to me 2 things. A, they're actually not really into the trade. They're not super jazzed up about acquiring Michael Porter Jr., and they might just say, you know what, we'd rather just keep LaVine. Or B, this is all a leverage play, and they're trying to find either a way to get something, to extract something more from Denver where they reroute Naji somewhere else, and they're able to get something back that's not Zeke Naji, or they're just not having to be the team that has to figure out what to do with Zeke Naji later. So my guess is it's probably a combination of both, that they're not super into the Michael Porter Jr. trade, but if Denver can find a way to reroute Naji to a third team and bring something else to Chicago that's more interesting to them, then they would at least start having conversations about that deal.
I think that's right. And it could, maybe this is posturing. Like, there's probably some element of posturing to just try to be like, get as much as you can out of Denver kind of thing. I also just, especially with like the Kings, I don't think being a LaVine team at this point doesn't feel like that's where we go. I don't know what other team has shown any interest in LaVine. So, like, if I really wanted to get off of Zach LaVine, and it feels like for everyone's sake, it might be better for everyone to do that. Mm-hmm. Zeke Naji would not stop me from doing that. deep down, I think this might be posturing.
Yeah, like I
This
said,
might
if
be
you
some
really
negotiating.
if you really wanted to do this trade, Zeke Najee's contract should not be enough to make you balk and not do it. I do think it's worth exploring the idea of turning Michael Porter Jr. into two different players as opposed to just LaVine. Obviously, it depends on what those two players are. This just strikes me as something that's going to bring, like, there's so many moving parts here, and there's so many things to think about that this feels like it's not going to be a trade in January, but probably something that gets done closer to the trade deadline in February.
Yeah, it feels right. All right. Wes, any holiday plans? Anything you're excited about for Christmas?
Not especially. No, and that's great because usually like we have like a trip planned or something during the holidays or something like that, and I'm kind of tripped out, and I'm excited to just spend the holiday season at home, honestly. So, we got some great basketball games. We got some football games on Christmas Day too. I'm excited for all of that.
Yeah, very low key Christmas from this year, which I'm very excited about. Am gonna go see the Nosferatu remake from Robert Eggers, and can't wait.
Sounds great.
Can't wait to get. Have you, Wes? Are you in on the gimmick popcorn buckets? Are you aware of this? Are you in on these? Have you seen the
Like the Dune
Nosferatu
one?
Yeah, this one is not quite like a sex toy they're selling you in a movie theater, but it is a sarcophagus. It is like they're calling it a popcorn sarcophagus, and I think I'm gonna have to buy it if I'm being honest with you.
I mean, anything you got to do to get people in those movie theater seats. Maybe Boston, Philadelphia should start selling gimmicky popcorn buckets.
They just need Joel Embiid to like play in that game, and then they could do that. Is that game's in Boston though?
Mm-hmm.
Their Boston fans are going to show up and just troll the whole time anyway. So it's really if that game was in Philly, I feel like they might need a popcorn bucket, like a Sam Hinkie commemorative popcorn bucket.
Yeah, look, if you're a Celtics fan, you're the only people enjoying watching your team play this year, and rightfully so, right? Like your team's dominant, they're really good. Show up, watch them play, watch them win on Christmas. Go home, get even more drunk than you probably were. You're from Boston.
And you know what? I support the extra drunkenness. That's going to be it for the Just Basketball Show, though. Back at you next week. We're going to take a little bit of a holiday break. I'm going to try to get something up on YouTube just reacting to the Christmas Day games on Thursday. That'll come out sometime just ad hoc that day. A little post-day reaction to that, so stay tuned for that. But have a great week. Enjoy the holiday. We'll talk to you next week to end the year on the Just Basketball Show. Be well, everyone. We'll talk to you soon.